I mean, I don't want to spoil the surprise, and you probably can't give that much away, but can you tell us anything about how visually you're presenting it, and musically as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's there's a lot of movement in it. It's certainly not statuesque, and it certainly isn't a case that the chorus stand and deliver. They are a very
they're busy.
They're busy, and they share more perhaps with the physicality of a Lecoq chorus or an ensemble. So sort of think, European physical theatre.
Right.
There's a way in. That's kind of what I'm interested in my work outside of classics, and so.
In terms of how the chorus deal with, the chorus have got an enormous amount of music to deal with. There are two basic major musical strands in the play, but essentially there's an enormous volume of chorus in this piece, and a musical approach to it, I suppose, is a way of managing that vast amount of material. They have an awful lot of poetry, some of which is very abstract, some of which is very direct, but we were quite strong at quite keen at the outset to really attack it and break it down and find and use music quite heavily throughout the chorus's presence on stage to allow them to have a voice of their own, which was distinctive, which wasn't necessarily about them standing centre stage and chanting in rhythm. So I suppose they sing and speak and chant and move all as part of one very complex, changing language throughout the play. The other exciting thing in the middle of this play, it is a bit of a surprise, but it's one I think is quite exciting, is the business of Cassandra. We've got a very big voice, and essentially we've cast an opera-trained singer to come and play the role of Cassandra. Cassandra presents a really fascinating conundrum in a play where nobody on stage or in the audience understands really a lot of the text.
Sure.
You've got a figure who is foreign, who, when she speaks, is either misunderstood or misinterpreted.
She needs another dramatic
So
language.
giving her a voice which could easily be distinguished as being something other than what the other people have on stage have, allowed us, set us moving on a musical solution. So we have a quite large sung operatic role in the middle of our piece, which makes it quite a bizarre concept, and one that requires some smoothing around the edges to make it fit in dramatically. And that's what we've been working on this morning, actually, is sort of finding the edges and making sure that her utterances don't feel like they've landed from Mars, but there's a sort of smooth delineation between her interaction in the play. And so that's a very exciting sort of musical, a distinctive musical feature of what happens here. But also it reflects back, essentially, we are, and in some of the work we've done outside of this room, it's about finding ways of managing large and otherwise quite difficult to interpret chunks of text, and finding linguistic and musical hooks to open them up.
And have you kept the text? I mean, is the text sort of sacrosanct, or have you been cutting
By no
pieces
means.
from it?
The creative scissors have been out quite a lot. And if you performed the entire text, like beginning to end, and just spoke it all, there'd be a couple of hours of material there. And then if you started singing any of it, which needs more space, obviously, you'd be there for 3.5 hours. And my instinct is probably that the optimum amount of time to spend sitting watching a Greek tragedy, or the sort of ideal theatrical curve for an audience experience is probably about an hour and a half.
Right.
That's the sort of.
Is there an interval in it? Or no?
No, you can't really put one in Agamemnon, because it builds and builds and builds and builds until the point of Agamemnon's murder, and if you try and put one in anywhere in the build,
I love the idea of
destroy all the
an interval cliffhanger as he's about to step on the carpet. Will he or won't he?
There isn't really.
That's a great idea.
It's really late though in the play. There's nothing. If you stopped halfway through, we'd be kind of going, nothing has actually happened yet. It's all about anticipation, and then the final sort of half an hour goes like a rocket. But so it goes straight through, but we have we've cut the text to give us space to use the other theatrical tools at our disposal, because we're using obviously language, the visual and the musical, and as with all our work, really, I think it's quite important that those three things are always combining, but they're not all doing the same thing. So there are places where you need to give space because you're exploring something musically, or space to explore something visually.
It's worth saying that
if you just have to rattle through the text to get through it all, you sort of can't really make a piece of theatre.
It's worth saying that I think that removing bits and pieces gives you more space to explore the bits that are proving vital, and there's actually what that makes way for is quite a lot of repetition. It allows us to bring out phrases that are really important, and lines of rhythms, and which are important to the verse, and which are unusual to a modern audience. They're not used to hearing verse that essentially runs in 11/8 time rather than which is not a particularly strange thing, but it's very exotic. And but yes, taking away some of the structure allows us to dwell on the things that are key to us in this play.
And I think you just have to treat it as a live piece of theatre in the same way that you would. I can't imagine, for example, Shakespeare is never performed uncut these days. You treat it as a sort of living text that the writer would have wholly approved of you making work, as it were, on the stage.
Shakespeare
And I
would
think
have wanted them up and down in 2 hours.
Yeah.
So there's no. I don't, It's funny that we dwell on. Well, his audience would have wanted them up and down in 2 hours. So it's so funny that we dwell on them for 3.5.
Yeah. So I think you sort of have to. I think the point of this project is to create a really fantastic theatrical experience. It's not about reconstruction. It's not about. It's not a sort of traditionalist or romantic. That was a very clear brief from the Cambridge Greek Play Committee when I was asked to do it. Was make a really exciting live living piece of theatre. And I think in order to do that, you have to be really focused on your audience and keeping it exciting and entertaining and theatrical and moving and all the things it should be, rather than trying to present an academic commentary on the text through a production, which is a completely different thing. An equally interesting one, but a totally different thing to be doing. You need to know all of that stuff and then choose when to ignore it. I think in order to make the best production, you need to not dismiss that body of knowledge. You need to certainly know it, engage with it, and use it to inform your choices, but not to strangle. It's ultimate reverence, really, to go, well, actually, let's take this play and make sure it's brilliant on stage and it works. I mean, to me, that's the sort of ultimate reverence to a playwright, is to insist that something.
And it's also by no means. Our brief is by no means to dumb down. It's not about saying we've got to make this lively for the kids who come and watch it. That's pretty much not on the agenda either. It's more about making it. Talk.
Well, it sounds like it's going to be an amazingly exciting theatrical experience, and it's also so exciting to come behind the scenes. And thank you very much for taking time out of your rehearsals to talk to us. And really looking forward to coming to see the play. So thank you.
Thank you very much.